we are here. It's a pleasure to share the Bima with our esteemed friends.
Happy to be.
The girls have been here to a good and sweet performance.
So they bought an investment property. Good for them.
So they have it so they bought it yeah. So they it was so wrapped up with
Is he handy?
it's pretty handy. His friend told me that the only thing about it is
L'Shana Tova. For those who may not know me, I'm Dina Joustrock, Congregational President. It's my pleasure to welcome you here tonight, especially to our new members. Welcome also to those who are joining us via streaming. Thank you to Phil Carey and David Youngman for manning the computers to enable those who cannot attend in person to join us. Please make sure your phones are silenced so as not to disturb the mood of our service. Please also make sure that if you've parked across the street that you cross at the light. We would like to see you back here for the rest of the services. You can access Santa Gertrudis by crossing the patio and using the ramp rather than use the stairs on Rosecrans. Also, please make sure that you have your tickets with you as you enter the temple, especially if you have to leave for any reason, as the security guards do not know you and will not allow entrance to anyone without tickets. Thank you all for your cooperation. Also, if you do not have a handicap placard, please do not park in the handicap spots. We have, unfortunately, a number of members who need those spots. We want to make sure they're available for them. A big thank you to everyone who made tonight's service possible. Rabbi Mark Goldfarb for his spiritual leadership, cantorial soloist Ariel Goldfarb, thank you for your beautiful voice. Our incredibly talented accompanist, choir director, and music arranger Ray Irwin, and our High Holy Day choir. So nice to have you back again this year. Thank you to Susan Montgomery, our own Deneen Dyson, who, by the way, is celebrating her birthday today. Happy birthday. Chris Campbell and Stan DeWitt. Thank you all for joining us again this year and enhancing our service with your beautiful voices. Thank you as well to our ushers, members of Brotherhood, headed again by Chris Jastrock. A special thank you to the members who are serving as security, who are giving up part of the service to ensure our safety and protection. Tonight it's Joe Gorin, Harry Jacobs, and Larry Polikoff. Thank you. Thank you to our committees and board members who work very hard to ensure that our services run smoothly, most especially our newly formed Security and Safety Committee headed by Doug Kotkin. Thank you all for cooperating with our new security procedures. We understand the transition may be confusing and perhaps frustrating, but unfortunately, this is our new reality. On the bema tonight are some of our past presidents. If you served as president of TBO, please rise so that we can recognize and acknowledge you. Thank you. It's not an easy job, but it most certainly is an important one. Thank you for your service and for setting a precedent for me to follow. I hope to honor your service during my term of office. Chris and I have been members of TBO for 41 years. We're not sure where the time has gone, but the TBO family has become our family as well. We know we can count on our friends here to be with us both in times of simchas and of sorrow. In turn, we are here for support of our friends as well. We joined the temple when Chris was discharged from the Navy and relocated when he obtained a job in Long Beach. We couldn't afford to live in Long Beach at that time, so fortunately a dear friend had a house that was available that had been trashed by the prior tenant. If we were willing to fix it up, it was ours for a very reasonable rent. Once we settled in, I began exploring the area, and one day as I was driving out Rosecrans, I drove out Temple Beth Ohr. I was very excited to find a temple, and more so to find out that it was a Reform congregation. I called to get information, and the next Friday night we attended services. We received the warm welcome that TBO was known for from Dottie Abel and Gert Starker, and immediately joined and arranged to have our daughter Sarah named, which we had not previously been able to do. I guess the rest, as they say, is history. I joined the choir and sisterhood, Chris joined Brotherhood, and we helped out wherever and whenever we could. We have both served on sisterhood and Brotherhood boards, and when we retired and had more time, on the temple board as well. It is our pleasure and honor to serve the temple, which has been such an important part of our lives. I am honored to serve as your president and encourage you to contact me at any time with your comments and suggestions. This is your temple. It does not belong to a select few. We are a very active congregation. There is always some activity going on. Please read your beacon and e-blasts and come participate in our events. There is a lot coming up in the next few weeks, including our annual Sukkah Under the Stars, sponsored by Brotherhood and Sisterhood, as well as a Sukkah Simchat Torah celebration, preceded by a Bring Your Own Protein dinner. As we usher in 5780, we should not take anything for granted and be grateful for what we have. To be able to sit here and pray freely is a gift that we should be grateful for. I urge you to contribute what you can to our Holy Day Appeal and ensure our future for us and our children. Please help us ensure our continued opportunities to learn and worship together. On behalf of Chris and myself, I wish all of you a healthy and happy New Year for you and your families. Shana Tova.
Thank you very much, Dina. Shana Tova and good Yontiv, everyone. Shana Tova. There we go. I thought I saw people out there. I mean, I know I need to get my prescription renewed periodically, but I thought I saw faces that I even recognized. We come together on this wonderful day, the doorway to a whole new year. Cantor, did you know that next Friday night we having a chili potluck Shabbat supper?
You know, I did.
You did?
Yes, absolutely.
And did you know that, we have so many wonderful benefactors who have enabled us to spiffy up our bima and all those things?
Why, yes, it looks lovely.
How did you know all of those good things?
Well, I read it in this beautiful Days of Awe High Holy Day packet.
Wow!
Which all of us would have received on the way in.
Look at all of these great things, including a notice about our food drive.
Wow.
Yes, that's right. And the High Holiday Appeal. By the way, folks, we just crossed the halfway point, so keep those dollars coming. And a whole list of activities taking place. Wow, this is such a valuable resource.
Who thought to put this together?
Yes, I think that's wonderful that we did put this together. I hope that people don't just tuck it away in their machzor and let it sit in there till next year.
That would be a shame.
But actually, take some of these things home and maybe put them on the refrigerator or on the counter so that way you know what's going on. Remember, you heard it here first. So we welcome the holiday of 5780, the new year. It is a great new year. What happened 5,780 years ago? Well, according to our rabbis, the world was created. We know the world is much, much older than 5,780, but it's a nice number. It fits easily in that little spot on our checks, and it works out very well on headlines and on those kinds of things, rather than all of those zeros we would have to add for the billions of years. And so we got to give credit to our rabbis who decided that we would celebrate Rosh Hashanah, not with Abraham, no, not with Adam, no, not with Moses and the Israelites, but that rather we would celebrate Rosh Hashanah, the birthday of the world. Not only is it the birthday of the world, but as you heard in Dina's remarks, it is also the birthday of the voice of Temple Beth Ohr, the woman who greets you on your phone calls, the one who has made all of our paperwork possible, who just the other day printed and published the Beacon. And so, I invite us to rise as we are able for a special moment.
Yom Huledet Sameach, Yom Huledet Sameach, Yom Huledet Sameach, Yom Huledet Sameach.
We may be seated. Don't go too far. With the preliminaries set aside, let us turn to our worship on this Erev Rosh Hashanah. We welcome the new year with great joy and with great excitement. We welcome the opportunity to be together as a community. And we do so as we turn in our prayer books and our machzorim rather to page 6 and find there on the bottom of page 6 a song and a melody to get us started. It is a new year. And so come, let us sing out God's praise together The bottom of the page, Hava Nashira. I invite us to rise as we are able. Ribono Shel Olam, Creator of the universe, Hineni, here I am, one soul within this prayer community. Like those around me, I bring my own concerns and yearnings to this sacred place, hoping they will find expression in the time-hallowed words of my people and in the traditions cherished by generations before me. May I bring the best of my energies to these holy days, approaching this spiritual work with open heart and an open mind, with sincerity and sustained focus on the deep questions of this season. Who am I? How shall I live? Where have I fallen short? And in what ways have I failed? This night, I take up the challenge of these days of awe, these Yamim Noraim, a Cheshbon HaNefesh, a searching examination of my life, a moral inventory of my deeds, my words, and my thoughts. During these next 10 days, let me face the truth about myself and listen to your still, small voice, taking comfort in your promise that I am always, always free to change. Released from staleness and routine, let me know the joy of beginning again. May I gain strength as I share this task with those around me, united by our common purpose. Tikkun midot, improving our characters, and tikkun olam, repairing our world. I now prepare myself to pray, one soul amidst this holy and sacred congregation. We may be seated. Our service continues on page 7.
Summer's gone, nights grow cold. These are the days of awe. The shofar blows. With bread in hand, down to the sea, we take time, give thanks, and cast our sadness free. That we may start fresh, that we may come clear, that we may know sweetness and peace throughout the year, that we may find love where we need it most, and open our hearts and hands and draw each other close. A day to fast and count the ways we've promised and fallen short, we meet each other's gaze. Begin again, life won't wait. Time turns and we return and walk on through the gates.
Under the moon, a roof of trees, we bring in the harvest. Beneath the stars we eat and sing for joy. Make ourselves strong. We'll reap what we've sown. May it last all year long, that we may start fresh, that we may come clear, that we may know sweetness and peace throughout the year, that we may find love where we need it most, and open our hearts and hands and draw each other close.
Creation's brightest light, the mystics say, was hidden at the time of dawn. But on this sacred night, this night of hope and joy, a glimmer of that light is here.
We continue on page 10.
In candles' flame, in children's eyes, in eyes aglow with wisdom's light, it shines in the face of the ones we love. In grateful hearts, in tears of loss, it lives in memories of goodness and in our desire to do right, to try again, to build anew, to ask forgiveness and make peace. We enter this new year and look upon the beauty of these lights. So may the days of awe renew the light within us. We continue on page 11.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Yom Tov. Source of blessing, eternal our God, you fill the universe with majestic might, teaching us holiness through sacred obligations, giving us the mitzvah of bringing light on this festival.
Has passed since we last gathered on Rosh Hashanah. And during that past year, we said goodbye to some dear friends and family members. We also welcomed into our lives new family members in our family, new members in our congregation. As we have journeyed this past year, we are able to be here on this very evening. And so we express our gratitude to God for giving us life, for sustaining us, and for enabling us to reach this season. Thank you very much for helping us light our candles. We have 4 people this year who have helped fill out our shofar quartet, and I am grateful to Eddie Goldstein, to Ellie Ursus, to Toby Porter, and to Matthew Hom. I invite you all to join me here. As we turn in our Machzorim to page 15. V'tiku v'chodesh shofar b'chesed leyom chagenu, at the new moon, at the full moon, for the full feast, sound the shofar, for what is the law of Israel, the way of the God of Jacob. Ata Adonai Shomea Kol Truat Amo Yisrael Berachamim. Blessed are you in our lives, Adonai. You hear with love the shofar, the true voice of your people Israel. Tekiah Shavarim Teruah Tekiah. Thank you. It's an appetizer for tomorrow. Our service continues on page 19. Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu yehi ratzon shenizkei lirchotecha. Our God and God of our ancestors, may we know your blessings in this year 5,780. Eternal One, bless us and the whole house of Israel with renewed life, with happiness and peace, comfort and courage, resilience and strength. May the words of our hearts be acceptable to you in the new year that stretches before us. We are forever grateful for the gift of life. Our service continues on page 20 as I invite us to rise as we are able for our Baruch Hu, our call to worship. Our service continues on page 22.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bivaro ma'ariv aravim, b'chokma poteach she'arim, uvivona meshana itim, umachalif et chazmanim, umsader et hakochavim, b'mishmerotechem barakia kiratzono. Borei yom v'layla, golel or mifnei choshech, v'choshech mifnei or, umavir yom umivei layla, umvadil bein yom uvein layla. Adonai Tzavaot Shemo, El Chai V'Kayam, Tamidim Lo Chaleinu Le'olam Va'ed, Baruch Atah Adonai Hama'ariv Aravim. Please continue on page 25. Okay. Right here. Do it on here. Okay. Shema Yisrael, hear the voice of Chana. There is no one holy as the Eternal. Truly, there is none beside you. There is no rock like our God. Please join.
Shema Yisrael, hear the call of Moses.
Embrace and carry in your heart this day. In heaven above, on earth below, Adonai is our God. There is none else. Shema Yisrael, hear the words of the mystics. There is nothing but God. No place and no person is empty of God. The whole earth is suffused with God's glory. Hear, O Israel, God's hands are our hands. God's work is our work. God's voice speaks through us. God is one when we are one. Blessed are you, eternal our God, sovereign are the universe, who has sanctified us by the commandments and commanded us regarding the reading of the Shema, to declare God's reign with a whole heart, to declare God one with a good and willing heart, and to worship God with a good and willing spirit.
We may be seated.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha uvechol nafshecha uvechol meodecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha ayom alavavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uvlechtecha v'derek ukshok becha uvkumecha ukshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot beinenecha uktavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha leman tizkeru va'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'item kedoshim lelohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti ethem me'eretz Mitzrayim lihiot lahem le'elohim ani Adonai Elohechem. Please continue on page 33. And we read responsively. To break the bonds of anger, to be generous of the heart.
To break the bonds of shame, to live with self-respect.
To break the bonds of envy, to serve one another in joy.
To break the bonds of boredom, to be attentive to all God's gifts.
To break the bonds of fear, to live with courage and strength.
To untie the knots of betrayal, to love with fullness of being.
To break the bonds of loneliness, to receive a hand of hope.
To break the bonds of self-centeredness, to extend a hand of help.
Released from the darkness, our people found their freedom at the sea.
And we pray for liberation at the dawning of this year.
You have stayed long enough in this place, God said. Time to go forward. Turn your face to the future. Believe that you can cross the sea and survive. Inside you is a Moses. Within you, Miriam dances, unafraid. Lift up your voice and sing a new song.
walking, I found out where I was going. By intensely hating, how to love. By loving, whom and what to love. By grieving, how to laugh from the belly. Out of infirmity, I have built strength. Out of untruth, truth. From hypocrisy, I wove directness. Almost now, I know who I am. Almost I have the boldness to be that man. Another step, and I shall be where I started from. One day, a few days after the liberation, I walked through the country past flowering meadows for miles and miles, toward the market town near the camp. Larks rose to the sky, and I could hear their joyous song. There was no one to be seen for miles around. There was nothing but the wide earth and the sky and the larks, jubilation and the freedom of space. I stopped, looked around and up to the sky. And when I went down on my knees, at that moment there was very little I knew of myself or the world. I had but one sentence in mind, always the same. I called to Adonai from the narrow prison, and God answered me in the freedom of space. Baruch atah Adonai, Gaal Yisrael. We praise you, O eternal power, the one who redeemed Israel. We continue on page 37. We read responsively. Darkness settles slowly across the horizon. The new year rises before us, its fragile moon awaiting our embrace.
Heaven and earth entwine in their annual dance of recreation. A fissure appears in the firmament tonight, an entranceway into new beginnings.
Out beyond the swells of the sea expands and contracts, keeping time to the thrumming of the universe.
Before us is uncertain. All we can do is hold each other tight as we make our way home.
We continue on page 40 with the Chatzi Kaddish. Gadol v'yit kadash shemei Rabbah. Amen. Be'alamad yivarach yirutei ve'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon uve'yomechon uve'chayei t'chol beit Yisrael. Bagala uvizaman karev ve'imneru Amen. Yehei shamei Rabbah me'olam le'olam Yitbarach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitador v'yitalev v'yitalol shemei dekudashah le'ela ule'ela min kol birchata v'shirata.
Our service continues on page 42 as I invite us to rise as we are able as we continue with our tefillah.
We continue on page 46. 44. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim V'Konei Hakol V'Zocher Chastei Avot V'Imahot U'Mevi Geula Livnei V'Nehem Lema'an Shemo B'Yahava.
Continue on page 46. Your life-giving power is forever, Adonai, with us in life and in death. You liberate and save, cause dew to descend, and with mercy abundant, lovingly nurture all life. From life to death, you are the force that flows without end. You support the falling, heal the sick, free the imprisoned and confined. You are faithful even to those who rest in the dust. We continue together. Power beyond power, from whom salvation springs, sovereign over life and death, who is like you, merciful God, who compares with you. With tender compassion, you remember all creatures for life, faithful and true, worthy of our trust. You sustain our immortal yearnings. In you we place our undying hopes. Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh Hakol, wellspring of blessing, power eternal. You are the one who gives and renews all life. We continue on page 49. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh ukadoshim b'chol yom yehalaluch hasela. And so in your holiness, give all creation the gift of awe. Turn our fear to reverence. Let us be witness of wonder. Perceiving all nature as a prayer come alive. We bow to the sovereignty of your strength, the primacy of your power. We yearn for connection with all that lives, doing your will with wholeness of heart. All-inspiring is your creation, all-encompassing is your transcendent name. We may be seated.
Let's
Our service continues on page 53.
You chose us with love to be messengers of mitzvot, and through us you made known your aspirations. Among all the many peoples, you gave us a pathway to holiness. Among all the great nations, you uplifted us and made us yourself our sovereign. And so we seek you and serve you and celebrate our nearness to your presence. Your great and sacred name has become our calling. In your love, eternal our God, you have given us this day of remembrance, a day for the shofar's joyful sound, a day of sacred assembly, a day to be mindful of our people's going out from Egypt. Our God and God of the generations before us, may a memory of us ascend and come before you. May it be heard and seen by you, winning your favor and reaching your awareness, together with the memory of our ancestors, the memory of your sacred city, Jerusalem, and the memory of your people, the family of Israel. May we be remembered for safety, well-being, and favor, for love and compassion, for life and for peace on this day of remembrance. Eternal our God, remember us, be mindful of us, and redeem us for a life of goodness and blessing.
Amen.
Favor us with the words of deliverance and mercy. Show us the depth of your care. God, we await your redemption, for you reign with grace and compassion.
Our service continues on page 58. Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, God who is ours and God of our fathers and mothers, lead us to holiness through your mitzvot, and may each of us find a portion of Torah that is ours. You bestow such goodness, teach us to be satisfied and to know the joy of your salvation. Help us to serve you truly with purity of heart, for you are a faithful God whose truth stands forever. Baruch atah Adonai, Melech al kol haaretz, Mekadesh Yisrael v'yom hazikaron. Our praise to you, Eternal One, whose power pervades all the earth. You bring holiness to the people Israel and to this day of remembrance. We continue on page 60.
Israel,
page 61. Blessing of the people. May the hands of our brothers and sisters who cherish the dust of our land, all of them, wherever they are, be strong. Do not give up in spirit, in joy, and in song. Come together as one for the sake of our people. We continue on page 63, and we read responsively. In the name of the daybreak, and the eyelids of morning, and the wayfaring moon, and the night when it departs, I swear I will not dishonor my soul with hatred, but offer myself humbly as a guardian of nature, as a healer of misery, as a messenger of wonder, as an architect of peace. In the name of the sun and its mirrors, and the day that embraces it, and the cloud veils drawn over it, and the utmost night, and the male and the female, and the plants bursting with seed, and the crowning seasons of the firefly and the apple. I will honor all life, wherever and in whatever form it may dwell on earth, my home, and in the mansions of the stars. We continue on page 65. I want to write about faith, about the way the moon rises over cold snow night after night, faithful even as it fades from fullness, slowly becoming that night-curving, impossible sliver of light before the final darkness. But I have no faith myself. I refuse it, even the smallest entry. Let this then, my small poem, like a new moon, slender and barely open, be the first prayer that opens me in faith.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Tasim Tasim
There are many different forms of peace. Peace when warring nations cease the fighting. Peace when people come together and work together for a common good. But there is also our own physical sense of peace, our sense of well-being. And as we share this prayer of peace, we also want to share a prayer for those whose peace, whose shalom, whose wholeness and well-being has been disturbed, perhaps even shattered by the challenges that they are facing. Our service continues on page 72 in preparation for our Mishaberach, our prayers for wholeness, shalom, and healing. We read responsively. May the Eternal One who blesses all life bless and strengthen all of us who struggle against illness.
May we whose lives are touched by illness be blessed with faith, courage, love, and caring.
May we experience the support and sustenance of family, friends, companions, and community.
May we be granted restful nights and days of comfort. We pray for Rosh Hashanah, precious moments of healing, and a sense of wholeness in body and soul.
May those who care for the sick with their hands, their voices, and their hearts be blessed with courage and stamina.
May those who pursue healing and medical skill and knowledge be blessed with insight, patience, and compassion.
May all of us, the sick and the well together, find courage and hope. And let us say, Amen. I invite you to share aloud the name of a loved one who is in need of such healing, one who has faced challenges to their sense of shalom, their wellness, their sense of well-being, their bodies, their minds. If there is one you would like to share, please share that name aloud. Baruch atah Adonai Rofei HaCholim. We praise you, O God, who helps us bring hope and healing to those who are in need. And let us say, Amen.
Sarah
come to a special part in our worship service. We stop the reading the words on the page. We stop singing the melodies we know so that we might instead listen to the words of our hearts and the melodies of our souls. To bring us into this time of quietude and reflection, I shared this thought. My simple prayer is that in all things I learn to love well, that I learn to touch the ever-changing seasons of life with a great heart of compassion, that I live with the peace and justice I wish for the earth, that I learn to care fully and to let go gracefully, that I enjoy the abundance of the earth and return to it from the natural generosity that is our human birthright, that through my own life, through joy and through sorrow, through thought and through deed, I might bring benefit and blessing to all that lives, that my heart and the hearts of all beings learn to be free. And so we pause. Our service continues on page 75. I invite us to rise as we are able. We haven't forgotten Avinu Malkeinu, though we've overthrown kings and we disobey fathers. And we have no great liking for absolute power. Akiva stood before you in a time of drought, and his words went up like a flame on the altar. Avinu Malkeinu, you alone are our ruler. Avinu Malkeinu, have compassion for us. He was humble and forgiving, so his prayer was answered. Tonight, we speak again in a time of drought. Dry ground beneath us, no water, only rock. Not a hunger for bread or a thirst for water, but hearts that are longing to hear your voice. For the sea of faith is all but gone. The tide's gone out on the empty beach. The world mocks our hopes and life tests our courage. Why do the wicked live on and prosper? Why are you silent when they prey on the innocent? And if your dominance is kindness and justice, why is creation in so much pain? Avinu Malkeinu, sustain our souls. Send rain to our roots. Help us find a way to pray. Help us to be humble and forgiving of ourselves and of one another. Avinu Malkeinu, renew these words. Help us to speak them with conviction and believe their truth. 100 generations have stood before the ark, and they lifted up their voices like flame on the altar. And they put their trust in kindness and justice, and they gave their strength to make the promise real. Avinu Malkeinu, we haven't forgotten. Avinu Malkeinu, bring us back to you. We read responsively in the Hebrew and the English. Avinu Malkeinu ein lanu melech ele ata. Avinu Malkeinu. Avinu Malkeinu lemancha rachem aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu aseh imanu lama'an shemecha. Avinu Malkeinu shlach refuah shlema lecholei amecha. Avinu Malkeinu kra ro'al gazer dinenu. Avinu Malkeinu kotvenu bersefer geula vishua. Avinu Malkeinu zochrenu bizchron tov lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu aseh lema'ancha v'hoshienu. Avinu Malkeinu shema kolenu. Avinu Malkeinu chatanu lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu chamol aleinu ve'al olalenu ve'tapinu. Avinu Malkeinu kalei dever ve'cherev ve'ra'av me'aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu kalei kol tsar umastin me'aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu kotvenu besefer chayim tovim. Avinu Malkeinu chadesh aleinu shana tova. Avinu Malkeinu chonenu va'anenu kien vanu masim. Asei imanu tzedaka v'chesed v'hoshienu. Avinu Malkeinu. Answer us with grace where our deeds are wanting. Save us with acts of justice and love. We may be seated. So how about that choir tonight, huh? Aren't they wonderful? It is such a pleasure and a fantastic honor to have them with us again and to hear all of their beautiful voices and music. And our cantor as well. Yes, you'll pardon me a little bit of kvelling. It is a pleasure to share the bima with someone with such spirit and such voice. And our own Dr. Ray Irwin, who helped arrange some of the very music we heard this evening. We've got a good team here on the bima, and I am grateful to be able to share again the holidays with you all. Thank you, choir, very much. Hello, cantor. There are four words that will strike fear into the heart of every man, woman, and child. Regardless of your political persuasion, regardless of your gender, regardless of your faith, regardless of your age, these four words will shake you to your core. Every spouse, every partner, significant other, boyfriend, girlfriend, and child dreads hearing these very four words. No matter where one places the emphasis on these words, it just doesn't matter. As soon as we hear it, we know it. We need to talk. Why are these words never a good thing? The doctor's office. We need to talk. Your cholesterol is down, your weight is down, your blood pressure is great, you're doing a good job. Why does it never go that way? Your spouse or partner. Thank you. We need to talk. Thank you so much for doing the laundry and cleaning the floor. Thank you. We needed that talk. Or your boss or your supervisor. We need to talk. That project you did was incredible, so creative, fabulous. Way to go. Why does it never work that way? We need to talk. conveys a sense of urgency. A situation previously tolerated has now suddenly reached a tipping point. We need to talk. Tonight is Erev Rosh Hashanah. We have a new year in front of us. We've just wrapped up the last year. And life is saying to us, we need to talk. There is an urgent question for us to answer. And it is not, what is the meaning of life? That question is far too big for us. Viktor Frankl, in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, notes the answer to that question about the meaning of life, the universe, and everything is beyond our limited finitude and beyond our capabilities to answer. It's too big of a question, and we will never have the opportunity, we will never know enough, and we will never be able to answer that question. Our infinite minds, our finite minds are just not equipped to deal with that. Although Douglas Adams does tell us that the answer is 42, but we know that something's wrong with that very answer. According to Frankl, ever since we human beings have answered the question of how do we survive in this world, there has been another pressing question. Having established ourselves on this planet, learning to grow our own foods instead of having to chase after them, learning to build shelters against the elements, learning to develop medical technologies that help us to eradicate some diseases that were once fatal to all. Now that we have answered the how do we live in this world, we must return to the question asked of Elijah. Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah, our prophet. Our Elijah the prophet, living in the 9th century BCE in Israel, witnessed incredible human suffering. King Ahab, who was the king at the time, was tired of the opposition. Who was the opposition in the 9th century BCE? There was no press. There was no internet. There was none of that. The opposition were prophets like Elijah, who were calling the king to task for his heartless way of ruling. It included some of the royal court as well, who were not happy with the way the king was doing things. And so the king decided, that's it, enough of the prophets, I will kill them all. The king gets to do that. The king doesn't like the questions you're asking, the king can have you killed. Interesting how some of our leaders don't like being asked questions. But there goes King Ahab sending out his troops, slaughtering hundreds of people who were speaking out against him. All of his opposition stealthily removed. Elijah manages to escape. He flees to the top of a mountain, and while he was there, he witnesses a wind, a ferocious wind, that split rocks on the mountain. An earthquake that shook the very mountain, and a conflagration that scorched the hillside. I think he was on Mount Baldy. But God was not in any of those events. And after those events, Elijah hears a kol demama daka, a soft, murmuring sound, a subdued voice that asked him, what is the meaning of your being here? Elijah saw no future where he was and decided to flee King Ahab and headed to, of course, the mountain. And what does God say to Elijah? Why are you here, Elijah? Why are you here on this mountain? You, of all people, Elijah, are a charismatic speaker. You have spoken out for justice in the past. You have challenged people. You have challenged the believers in Baal. And King Ahab, you run away from. Why are you here, Elijah? Why are you here? What happens? Elijah goes back. Elijah goes back to confront King Ahab and do what Elijah does best, to speak out. To speak out against the king, to make himself a clear and visible target. And he survives. Kohelet writes, pointless, pointless. It's all utterly meaningless. Nothing matters. The book of Ecclesiastes. What does a person gain from all his labor, at which he or she toils under the sun? Generations come, generations go, but the earth remains. The sun rises, the sun sets, and it cares nothing about us. Kohelet, Ecclesiastes, perhaps anticipated the thoughts of Jean-Paul Sartre and others modern existentialists who taught that existence is meaningless, absolutely meaningless, and that we humans simply have to accept that it's meaningless. To which Viktor Frankl says, absolutely not. In Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl paraphrases Friedrich Nietzsche. One who has a why to live for, can bear almost any how. Tomorrow, I would like to explore with you the disastrous results of those who cling to an inauthentic why and engage in heinous acts of how. Tonight, however, I'd like to explore with you how we might begin to discover our whys. Viktor Frankl was an Austrian neurologist and psychiatrist in the late 1920s. With the rise of Nazism, guess where he ended up? Theresienstadt and then Auschwitz. And it was there in Auschwitz that he witnessed the truth of Nietzsche's statement and began developing the basis for what would become logotherapy, his form of therapy, meaning therapy. The original title for Man's Search for Meaning was, Nevertheless, Say Yes to Life. A psychologist experiences the concentration camp. Frankl wrote in his book, I can see that in these words, a motto which holds true for any psychotherapy. If you can find a why, a meaningful why, you can deal with any how. In the Nazi concentration camps, one could have witnessed that those who knew that there was a task waiting for them to fulfill were most apt to survive. And what the meaning of that task was different for each inmate in the concentration camp. For some, it was simply to survive. I will survive this. For others, it was to survive to bear witness against the Nazis. Eventually, justice would prevail. For others, it was to live out their values, their humanity, their compassion, in spite of the inhumane conditions in which they were living. One who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. Frankl's not attempting to justify the cause of the pain and the suffering in the camps. It is not that those who were in the concentration camps were put there so that they could discover meaning in their lives. No, absolutely not. Frankl writes that a seed of meaning is present at every moment and at every experience, whether joyful or mournful. When faced with the horrific reality of being stripped of all their rights, denied all their humanity even, and even there in Auschwitz, Frankl was convinced there was meaning to discover. After he rebuilds his practice, in the book Man's Search for Meaning, Frankl relates this following story, that an elderly general practitioner consulted me, Viktor Frankl writing, because of his severe depression. He could not overcome the loss of his wife, who had died 2 years before, and whom he had loved above all else. He said to me, I am not interested in medically treating my depression. I am aware of all the medications that could help me feel better. so don't prescribe me any medication. Now how could I help him? What should I tell him, writes Frankl. Well, I refrained from telling him anything, but instead confronted him with this question. What would have happened, doctor, if you had died first and your wife would have survived you? Oh, the doctor said, for her this would have been terrible. How she would have suffered. Whereupon I replied, you see, doctor, such a suffering has been spared her, and it was you who spared her this suffering. To be sure, at the price that now you have to survive her, and you have to mourn her. He said not a word, but shook my hand and calmly left the office. Suffering ceases to be suffering the moment it finds a meaning, such as the meaning of making a sacrifice for another, writes Viktor Frankl. Frankl did not wax philosophic with this depressed doctor. He did not engage in a discussion about all things live, all things die, get over it. He did not quote the Bible, Kohelet, there's a time to be born and a time to die. Viktor Frankl did not quote Shakespeare, the whole world is a stage, and all the men and women merely actors, they have their exits. No. All Viktor Frankl did was allow the doctor to open a personal perspective in response to his suffering. The doctor spared his wife from the pain and suffering that would have occurred had the doctor died first, a pain and suffering that this doctor knew intimately, and this he spared her. Dr. Frankl did not cure this depressed doctor, this grieving man. He simply allowed this doctor to discover a personal meaning on his own, and with that meaning, the grieving doctor was able to bear the how of his existence. Again, Frankl's not suggesting, nor do I believe, is not suggesting that this poor doctor's wife had to die in order to teach this doctor a lesson of meaning. No, his wife died for all the reasons that people die. The effects of her death on this doctor and on her husband disrupted his life so much that he sought treatment. And all Dr. Frankl did was allow the grieving man to discover a meaning. But this meaning could not be found in solitude. 2,000 years after Kohelet, after Ecclesiastes, and 2,000 years before Viktor Frankl lived a very humble rabbi who taught that very lesson. Rabbi Hillel, born in Babylonia, died in Jerusalem, taught, if I am not for myself, who will be for me? And if this was the only part of this teaching of Hillel, well, we could certainly understand the world in which we live in, where everybody seems to be only concerned about themselves. But Hillel's teaching is a three-part, a tripartite teaching. If I am not for myself, who will be for me? But if I am only for myself, what am I? In other words, I believe Hillel has anticipated Viktor Frankl, or better yet, Viktor Frankl, a nice Jewish boy who studied Hillel, probably took to heart Hillel's teaching. If I am only for myself, there is no why to my life, only a big what. What am I? And if not now, when? Had the grieving doctor not sought out Viktor Frankl, he could have easily but erroneously concluded that the meaning of his wife's death was the final act of revenge. She did this to me. This is all her fault. Or he could have found meaning erroneously in a belief that God is sadistic and enjoys seeing human beings suffer. So therefore, his wife's death is all God's doing, and she was, and he was, and all of life is but God's puppet show, and back to Kohelet, it's all meaningless. It takes someone else to help us find the meaning, because the I, the individual, the ego, our ego, asks this question: What is the meaning of my life? After all, the I, the individual, our ego, we are the subject. We're the subject of every sentence. According to Viktor Frankl, however, that's the wrong question. That's not how life works. It's not what is the meaning of my life, but rather, it does not really matter what we expect from life, but rather what life expects from us. And here's the big twist. What life expects from us. Life is constantly questioning and challenging us. Every moment of every day of our entire life, life is throwing something at us. Whether those moments are joyful or mourning, life is waiting for our answer. And according to Viktor Frankl, our answer must consist not in talk and not in meditations, but in right action and in right conduct. Viktor Frankl challenges humankind that it is ultimately our search for meaning that motivates us. It is not the pursuit of pleasure. It is not the pursuit of power, but rather it is our desire to live meaningful lives that drives us. In Frankl's words, to transform a personal tragedy into a triumph, to turn one's predicament into a human achievement. On the road of life, there are many beautiful sights to see, but there are also many potholes. I did not realize this at the time, but Deb and I were putting into practice this very teaching of Viktor Frankl. It is not my intention to embarrass my children, especially when one of them happens to be our cantor. I'm so very proud of them and what they are becoming and how they have risen to the challenges. But there were times when I wasn't sure that they were going to have a future. And nothing is more terrifying for a parent than to see no future for their child. As you may recall, when Ariel was born, at the age of 1 month, she was only slightly jaundiced, just a little. But our pediatrician was on top of things and said it could be nothing, but it could be something very major. Let's go do a test. We go to Children's Hospital, the test is done, the doctor sits with us and says, if your infant lives, she will need a transplant. She was diagnosed with biliary atresia, blockage of the bile glands, and to this date is the oldest living patient on the planet with biliary atresia who has not received a transplant. We were much younger then, and this was our first child. She was only a month, 30 days old. Deb and I could have walked away from this. We could have walked away from each other. It's a parent's worst nightmare to be told that the odds of your child's survival are so small that stress can easily break relationships. Married couples have done that much for a lot less. We could have walked away from our daughter. After all, she was only a month old. As heartless as that sounds, there were infants at Children's Hospital in Cincinnati, Ohio, whose parents had done exactly that. But no, we found a why, and we were able to bear the how. The why we discovered was God entrusted us with a personality, and we were going to do whatever it took to make sure that that personality would blossom and would become. By the age of 1.5 years, Ariel had gone through 4 incredibly major, complicated surgeries, and she would have one more. And here she is today. Her tenacity, her tenaciousness, her stubbornness, her desire to live, her doctors, all of those things, I'm sure, contributed to that. But as parents, it was hell. And trying to figure out how we were going to get through that, at the time we did not realize, but looking back, it was because we had found a why to persevere. As some of you know, Micah, who's a wonderful young man now, successful student at Cal State Long Beach, just transferred, got his his associate from Cyprus with honors, and is in the film school at Cal State Long Beach, experiencing the heavy load of college life and all of those stresses. But Micah was not always so productive. He kind of lost his way in high school. Micah became a statistic that the school wanted to get rid of, and so they did. They just wrote him off. None of our attempts to get them to address the situation worked. Worse, California has some really peculiar laws, including a minor must sign permission to be drug tested, that prevented us from intervening in any kind of therapeutic way with Micah's drug abuse. At that time, Deb and I had professionals' careers that were incredibly stressful and very high pressured, and the last thing we needed in our lives was to come home to an even more constant, life-threatening, ever-present, stressful situation. We could have chosen to blame each other. We could have said to each other, "That's it. This is your child. I'm out of here." We could have ignored the situation and waited till Micah turned 18. It would only be about 18 months at that point in time. And kicked him out of the house and left him to his vices. As heartless as all of that sounds, we know that there are parents who have done just as much for a lot less. But no, we found a why. We were not going to let our son destroy his life. We were not going to let this personality that God had entrusted to us as parents drift away and slip through the cracks. And so, off he went to Utah, where minors have no rights. Wilderness, and then a high school board and therapy high school. Micah graduated with a 3.8, came back home. The kind, sweet, laughable, funny, caring, compassionate young man we knew until he got into high school had returned. He found himself, and I'm very proud of the person he's becoming. In both of those situations, Deb and I could not change the situation. We could have run away from it. We could have ignored it. There were lots of things we could have done. But the only way that we could try to address it was if we found a meaning for us to be able to bear the burden of either facing the doctors and the surgeries for Ariel, or to fight with the school and to get Micah the therapy that he needed so that he would be a functioning and contributing and proud member of our family and this community. In man's search for meaning, ultimately, it is we who determine the meaning of our experiences. For the only choice we really have is to choose one's attitude to any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. And so, on this eve of a new year, as we look ahead to 5780, life says to us, we need to talk. And life is waiting for us to answer the ultimate question of our lives. What is your why to live? May we have the strength and the courage to explore with others the meanings in our moments. And may we fill this new year with right actions and with right conduct. Ken yehi ritzonenu. So may it be our will. I want to thank our brotherhood for this wonderful projection setup. the ability to play with high-tech toys on a holiday. Our worship service continues on page 81. Rabbi Israel Salanter once spent the night at a shoemaker's home. Late at night, he saw the man working by the light of a flickering candle. "Look how late it is," the rabbi said. "Your candle's about to go out. Why are you still working?" The shoemaker replied, "As long as the candle is burning, it is still possible to mend." For weeks afterward, Rabbi Salanter was heard repeating the shoemaker's words to himself. As long as the candle is burning, it is still possible to mend. As long as the candle burns, as long as the spark of life still shines, we can mend, we can heal, we can seek forgiveness and reconciliation. We can begin again. We continue with the words of our adoration, the Aleinu on page 82. I invite us to rise as we are able. Continue on page 85. May the time not be distant, O God, when all shall turn to you in love, when corruption and evil shall give way to integrity and goodness, when lies and bigotry shall no longer enslave the mind, nor idolatry blind the eye. So may all created in your image become one in spirit and one in friendship, forever united in your service. Then shall your realm be established on earth and the word of your prophet fulfilled. Adonai will reign forever and ever. We continue on page 87. Death will come. Its hand will not be stayed even for an instant, nor can we enter into judgment with it. Our question, why, will go unanswered. But this does not mean that we are helpless in the face of death. We can and we do rob death of ultimate victory by living life as long as it is ours to live. To ask of death that it never comes is futile, but it is not futility to pray that when death comes for us, it may take us from a world one corner of which is a little better because we were there. When we are dead and people weep for us and grieve, let it be because we touched their lives with beauty and simplicity. Let it not be said that life was good to us, but rather that we were good to life. We continue on page 90. With the words of our Kaddish, we call to mind those for whom we are observing our Shiva and Shloshim period. We call to mind in particular Don Kessler, husband of Joyce Kessler, longtime Temple Beth Ohr member, and Joyce, our hearts go out to you. And Paula Marcus, sister of Eddie Goldstein, and Eddie, our hearts go out to you as well. And Eric, Sandra, and Michael Lertzman, son-in-law, daughter, and grandson of Betty Mack. And Betty, our hearts go out to you. Zichronam levracha, may their memories be for a blessing as we share together the words of our Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, v'agala uv'izman kari v'imru amei. Yahei shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam ulalmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, shemei dekudesha b'richu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mra, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. May all of us who mourn and all of us who are bereaved, may we find through God's presence a source of strength, courage, and hope, and above all a source of shalom, of peace. And let us all say, amen. We may be seated. As I invite us to turn back in our prayer books to page... Wait, are we doing closing song first and then Kiddush? Good. We turn to page 79 as I invite members of our Brotherhood President, Ted or David Sain, to join us here for a special reading. It's not up here. At the conclusion of our worship service, we are invited to share Rosh Hashanah oneg on our patio. I guess it may be a little chilly out there, but it's good for us to be a little chilly. But we will have some nosh and some beverages. We are going to share the Kiddush here. There will be some wine available and juice available for those who would like, so that all you have to do is just pick up your glass. We are going to do the Kiddush, and following that, we will conclude with our concluding song. And then after that, we will break for an oneg for those who are able to stick around for a little bit of nosh before you head on your way. Our Brotherhood is going to share, presidents of our Brotherhood are going to share a special reading for us as we prepare for the Kiddush.
The commandment to bless this wine is a commandment to drink life as deeply as we drink from this cup. It is a commandment to bless life and to love deeply. It is a commandment to remember our relationship with God, to join with God as partners in the process of creation, so that by our words, our deeds, our examples, we can create worlds within others. It is a commandment to laugh until we are all laughter, to sing until we are all song, to dance until we all dance, to love until we are all love.
The observance of Rosh Hashanah reminds us to judge our words and our deeds by a divine standard. It calls us to turn from old errors and failures and to look ahead with fresh hope and determination. Let us praise God with a symbol of joy, the fruit of the vine, and give thanks for the gift of life. May our observance on this day fill us with eagerness to embrace life and to sanctify it. May the new year bring renewed courage to us, strength to our people Israel, and peace to the world.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol am v'romemanu mikol lashon v'kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'titen lanu Adonai Eloheinu be'ahava et yom hazikaron hazeh yom teruah mikra kodesh zecher l'tziat mitzrayim kivanu v'charta ve'otanu kiddashta mikol ha'amim u'devarcha emet ve'kayam la'ad Baruch atah Adonai melech al kol haaretz mekadesh Yisrael v'yom hazikaron L'chaim.
We stand at the threshold of this new year. May it be one that is filled with all that is good and sweet for us. May we find, through those who gather by our sides, our friends, our families, ways to enrich the meaning of our lives. And may we be blessed through those very deeds to inscribe ourselves in the book of health and in the book of life. And let us say, Amen. We conclude our service this evening. Since this is a new year, we should fill it with a new song, a new melody, Shir Chadash. I invite us to rise as we are able. Put our arm around the shoulder of someone next to us, hold the hand of someone who needs to remain seated, so that we might create for ourselves a link of strength and a link of joy to take us into the new year. Shir Chadash.
Oh
Shana Tova Umituga, to a good and a sweet year.
It's conveniently cut into 4 pieces. Take a piece. It's conveniently cut into 4 pieces. So take a piece. Thank you. I have no idea, but it's delicious. So oh my gosh, it's chocolate and coconut and deliciousness. Somebody, it's conveniently cut into 4. Somebody help me eat this. Is all I'm asking. Thank you, Ray.